Talk of a Christmas election had the pulse of Canadian politics racing this week, and it's not over yet. With only 4 days until the federal government presents its budget, there's still no clear answer if the government has enough opposition support to pass it, which has the Prime Minister out selling his fiscal plan to Canadians.
We will cut wasteful government spending. We'll make massive investments in the things that grow our economy. Homes, new ports, electricity grids. We'll be our own best customer. And we're going to sell to the world. We'll make generational investments to protect our communities, our borders, our way of life. Investments to build a stronger economy where everyone has a chance to get ahead. And investments to empower Canadians with new opportunities, better careers, and a lower cost of living.
In the lead up to the budget, the Conservative leader is selling his own vision. He gave a speech last night meant to counter the Prime Minister's pre-budget address to university students.
We need a country where people can get back up on their feet, where they can dream again, when they can believe that their dreams are possible. And so our message tonight is exactly the opposite of what youth heard in that somber, dystopic speech from Mark Carney. Our message is, you don't have to live like this. You deserve better.
Here to talk about all this pre-budget politics are some of our political insiders. Erica Baroudis is a former principal secretary to Premier Daniel Smith. And here with me, Greg McEachran is a former Liberal ministerial advisor, and Anne McGrath is a former director of the New Democratic Party. Nice to see you all. Thanks for coming in on this Halloween. Greg, I'll start with you. What are you hearing? Do you think that the Liberal government has enough votes to get this budget through next week?
I really don't know at this point, but what's interesting is the posturing. So MP Michelle Rempel-Garner, had a tweet saying that there's going to be an election because the Liberals want one. Well, I was watching the end of the Blue Jays game the other night with a Liberal MP and a Conservative MP. Yes, it can happen. And both of them said that neither one of them wants an election. Yeah. And I will note Rempel-Garner has predicted elections that have not happened before. So there's an exercise in that, because they don't want an election, but they want you to think, the Conservatives don't want an election, but they want you to think the Liberals want one. Right. So there's a lot of that going on right now. I watched the Ad Issue panel last night. I paid attention. If I remember correctly, Chantal Hébert said that the Bloc would not be supporting the budget, but I know that there's a lot of initiatives in what's been announced so far and what will come out that are very targeted and very popular in Quebec. Things around proper and constructive gun control, things around immigration. So there are things that are going to be very tough for some of the parties to vote against. And then, the thing that people really need to remember is, Prime Minister Carney ran on a platform. He promised a lot of this stuff. You cannot be surprised that it's going to be in the budget.
Yeah, Erica, I was reporting last night on this program that senior Conservatives really do not want an election. They're telling me they don't want one, but they also don't want to vote for this budget because they don't want to be seen as propping up Prime Minister Mark Carney or backing an agenda, frankly, that they don't support. Where do they go from here? How do they approach this next week?
I think you'll see both of those things be true. I don't think any Canadian wants an election right now. To Greg's point, I mean, the Prime Minister made commitments. I think that there's still that grace period by Canadians to see how he delivers on that. And I don't think that this budget is going to be the oh my goodness budget as much as potentially next year. So from a Conservative standpoint, I don't think an election is in the best interest, as we all have apathy of the last election. And so I do think, though, that they will ultimately vote against this budget. I mean, this budget speaks to everything. And I haven't seen it. I don't have a crystal ball, but even the tone of Mark Carney speaks to everything that goes against all the values and beliefs of Conservative values. And so we're seeing the lack of fiscal prudency. I don't know how you do that much investment while still being fiscally accountable. There's no true sign towards a smaller government, and there is commitments, but no reality by the Prime Minister to get out of the way of industry and let the provinces and their natural resources thrive to help our superpower economy that he keeps talking about.
Yeah, they don't want to vote for it, but they don't want an election, though. It's a tricky one. I mean, I also was reporting that they're having conversations, Anne, with the NDP, right, and the Bloc Québécois about whether there will be enough opposition votes that they can cobble together to try and get it through. The Conservatives want to see it get through, but it's kind of interesting that they're the ones doing some vote counting.
Well, I think that the Conservatives are the party on the Hill that least wants an election.
Yeah.
They are, in my view, almost desperate to avoid it. And as Erica says, they don't necessarily they don't feel like they can vote for it. And I think that they're right about that.
Right.
But they don't want an election either for, I think, some pretty good reasons. So they're trying to put pressure or either cajole or move other parties into supporting the budget. I'm not sure if that's going to work. I do know that, I don't think anybody ever wants an election, and yet we do still seem to have them.
Yes, every so often.
Yes, and I thought it was interesting that the Liberal House Leader, Mr. McKinnon, made the point that it would be a Christmas election, which is very obvious, like kind of a little scare tactic. But we've had Christmas elections before.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the last Christmas election that I was involved in, the Liberals lost government.
Oh, I remember.
What do you think, though, the NDP, the NDP did okay in that one, too, if I remember right?
Yes,
They picked up some seats. And,
it was the beginning of our kind of rebuild.
Right. And so what is your advice, then, to this caucus, to this NDP caucus, as they make that decision? Like, do you think they should maybe, hey, let's give it a shot, see what can happen?
Well, I don't know what they're going to do. I think that they're right to kind of put out broad strokes kind of demands, not be too specific. I think they're right to say that they want to read the budget first. I suspect they won't come out and say what they're going to do right away. Yeah. I think it'd be better to wait a little bit. I think it'll be interesting to see if it's a budget that is the austerity budget and this budget of sacrifice that they're talking about. And if that's the case, and they do want to have an election, the Liberal government, that'll be hard because it won't be a campaign budget in that case.
Greg, you mentioned that there is some outreach to the Bloc Québécois, but at least in public, the government's not working that hard to convince the other parties to come on side, and we're not necessarily hearing through our sources and through our conversations with different people that Steve McKinnon's really twisting arms and trying to get people to do it. Is that a sign that the government, hey, maybe they're all right with another election?
Well, I think this is not the situation Justin Trudeau was in and that the NDP were in, and you needed a supply and confidence deal. Because as Erica said, and alluded to, the polling numbers between the parties could be kind of close right now, but the difference between what people think of Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre is a huge gap. And then Stu Benson from the Hill Times today is reporting on the third quarter fundraising. And this is the lowest fundraising for the Conservatives since Pierre became leader in the fall of 2022. The NDP, there is no Jack Layton right now because there's no permanent leader. This is not 05-06. Right. But I will tell you, the people around Paul Martin in 05, when we were looking like we were going to head into an election, I remember being on a call as a director of communications that Canadians will punish the people that make us have a Christmas election. Yeah, they really punished them. They made Stephen Harper Prime Minister. And I knew that was going to happen because in 1999, I worked for the provincial government of Russell McClellan, minority government, and we lost a confidence vote and we had to have a summer election. And oh, the horror of a summer election. And boy, Nova Scotians will really punish John Hamm. And they punished him by giving him a majority government. Right. So people get over that stuff pretty fast. So this is the sobering moment. No one wants an election. So what are you doing to make sure there's not going to be one? Yeah. And you have to be careful of accidents.
Erica?
Well, I will say I think it was the best Christmas present when Stephen Harper became Prime Minister. But no, I think we're just going to see a lot of conversations happening behind the scenes. I think the budget will pass by a small margin. I think it'll be a strategic vote by the opposition to still send that message to the government that they are on thin ice. They've got to deliver on these things. I don't think any opposition leader is sitting there smiling right now for the demands that they've put forward to this Liberal government. Mm-hmm. And so I think we're going to see a lot of necessary steps from Carney, or I think that's what Canadians are hoping for, is that Carney will take some of those steps to make amends with all the premiers, make amends and truly unite. But I will be obviously biased and say that I don't think that's going to happen. And we'll see a new budget coming forward next year. Who knows when, based on their record right now. But I think we're going to see an even tougher budget after coming off of an election platform that, again, a lot of people give grace to the leader coming in.
Anne, final word on this one?
Yeah, I think that if Greg makes a good point. If the Liberals really don't want an election, they're not acting like it. They are not. There's no full court press happening here. There is nothing that I'm aware of that's going on that would actually persuade anyone in the opposition to support them.
No.
I would just add to that is I think once we see the budget and what's in it, it's harder to try to convince and win people over until that budget is actually tabled.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Okay, let's pivot to the other big story of the week. U.S. President Donald Trump said today he won't be restarting trade talks with Canada.
I have a very good relationship. I like him a lot. But you know what they did was wrong. He was very nice. He apologized for what they did with the commercial. Because it was a false commercial. You know, it was the exact opposite. Ronald Reagan loved tariffs, and they tried to make it look the other way. And he did apologize, and I appreciated it. We had a great dinner, you know, with other countries, as you know. And I think we have a very good relationship personally. I think that what they did was wrong, but he apologized.
Meanwhile, at the White House, one of Trump's top economic advisors was more blunt about the president's relationship with Canada.
He's tried to negotiate with the Canadians to get better deals for Americans, and they've been, frankly, rude and dismissive. And this is how it gets to where we are.
And again, Ontario Premier Doug Ford takes to U.S. media to get his message out, publishing his second op-ed of the week, this time in the Washington Post. The headline, Canada and the Toronto Blue Jays are global heavyweights. Well, the Blue Jays are one game away from becoming World Series champions. How far away is Canada from a trade deal? Let's dig into this one now. Greg, what do you make of this up and down with the president? I mean, one day we're really mean and nasty, and then the next day, as soon as he has some sort of FaceTime with the Prime Minister, he's back to saying he's a nice guy, although not recommitting to opening trade talks after that sit-down in Asia.
I was grateful that the camera wasn't on us because I was rolling my eyes so much. I was, worried that people at home would think I was having a stroke. But we went through this, last week, where, Ronald Reagan was very much against tariffs. And the 5 chief economic advisors to him, including the person that was his Secretary of State from '82 until Reagan finished as president, George Shultz, these were people that were in favor of free trade. There was some big issues with the growth of the Japanese economy, the growth in auto industry. There were some things targeted at that. Ronald Reagan probably saved Harley Davidson by tariffs on Japanese motorcycles, but they were very targeted.
Sparingly.
And even, Donald Trump's vice president from his first season, Pence, came out on Twitter and said Ronald Reagan was against tariffs. There's been other Republicans from that era that have said this. And what I find really tough is that you listen to that and you just think, like, why do we believe him now? Why do we believe him this time? I think more and more, there was a bit of a fail on the part of the Mark Carney PMO when they went to Washington and they set expectations around a deal on steel or aluminum. You don't do that unless you're close. So they obviously were close. They thought they were close enough to predict that. And then what we hear as well is that the negotiations were going really well. This is Trump's style. He's going to pull the pin out of a grenade as we're about to have a deal, throw it in the room because he's going to see what else he can get. And we just have to wait this out. Like, we've got 38 more months of this guy as president, as long as the Constitution doesn't change. So, we can't react to every little thing. I think Bruce Arthur in the Toronto Star has he says it's much better than I do, but we have to stop with these little, every little eruption we react to. You just got to kind of, just hold on and wait.
No, fair enough. And just on that Reagan point, he called protectionism destructionism, and he said that, tariffs are a prescription for ruin, not renewal. So let's just be clear about where Reagan stood on that issue. Erica, what do you make of the Prime Minister allegedly apologizing? I mean, if we're to believe Trump's retelling of what that meeting was like or that sit down at dinner, Carney apologized for the ad that Ford ran. Do you think that was the right decision?
Well, I think it's interesting because the first part of this story was that Doug Ford's government put this out. Then we learned that Mark Carney and his chief of staff saw it and approved it. I mean, I think this ad, and I come from the other side of the country, and I come from a province where the premier has taken very diplomatic as opposed to aggressive acts against Donald Trump's administration. And so I see that whole situation as a miss, primarily for the prime minister to be a part of it, because I get Doug Ford's purpose of standing up for Ontario. I think apologizing at this point is the best that can happen from it. But I want to come back to what Greg said, because in politics, if you have to explain, you're losing. And so the fact that we have to sit here and now explain why we did it or what was the intention, and that it wasn't directed at Trump, it was directed at Republicans and people outside that could potentially influence. Well, the second part is you also have to know your opponent. And Donald Trump doesn't go off facts and rationalization. So I appreciate the apology. It seems like Trump likes him as a person, but Trump is a businessman. And so business and personal relationships are separate. I'll give Carney credit, fall on your sword to hope progress. But I think that the whole thing is just blowing up in Canada's face as a result of the Prime Minister encouraging this ad to go forward in the first place.
Okay, no, if we're going to talk about facts, do we know that the Prime Minister approved this? We don't know that.
No.
We know that
they were informed.
That his Chief of Staff saw
Doug Ford Doug Ford said both.
No, he did not say approved. So let's just, if we're going to criticize Trump for lack of facts, let's stay with this.
He didn't stop it. He didn't stop it.
Yeah, but why would you stop a premier?
Yeah.
What would the story be the next day? The Prime Minister is trying to prevent Danielle Smith from doing something. She would be all over that. So I think we can't pick and choose when Trump says something and it hurts our political opponents and we like it. We can't choose to believe that and then not believe him when it doesn't suit our purposes. I mean, it's ridiculous to try to expect that we're going to have a normal negotiating system, so we can't believe him when he says this stuff.
Well, he's never prone to exaggeration, so.
Well, and he did feel the need to apologize, though, apparently. I mean,
apparently, is doing a lot of work there.
Yeah, apparently, although we haven't had any denial from the Prime Minister's office. So, I mean, he might not have approved it, he might have just let it go, but he also did feel the need to say something to the president about it. And what's your take on this?
Well, I think that it's true that this particular president is absolutely volatile, definitely prone to exaggeration, and doesn't seem to want to make a deal. For as much as he talks about making deals, I don't think he wants to make a deal. But I also would say that we can't kind of hang our hat too much on the fact that he's only got however many months left in his presidency, because traditionally the Republicans, as we saw with Ronald Reagan ad, traditionally the Republicans have been the pro-free trade party, and the Democrats have been the protectionist party. So even, I don't think that the problem goes away when Donald Trump goes away. I think it might be diminished somewhat. So that's why I think that this whole idea of pursuing trade, a more diversified trade environment, is absolutely imperative.
Erica, quick final word to you on this segment. Do you think that it is a political risk for Carney to have to go cap in hand to Trump repeatedly, to apologize, to offer concessions, to have to try and coax him back to the table? I mean, knowing what we know about how Mark Carney won the last election, it's not great for him, right, here at home, for these sort of images to be seen.
No, I mean, I think it's difficult for any leader that campaigns on something like an aggressive elbows up campaign and then has to take a very passive approach. I don't wish that on any politician, frankly, because it impacts our entire country. But I do think that there's still the opportunity for Carney, which is why I keep referencing next year's budget and next year's potential confidence vote, on how he actions this coast to coast economy that we have. There's ways to leverage and advance Canada's economic power in the international stage. It's just, is he going to be able to deliver on those commitments? And there has been rumors that his next tranche of infrastructure is coming out. So I do think in the benefit for all Canadians is there is stuff he can do to, and I think your guest before highlighted it, is looking at that domestic partnerships that we need to have in our country.
Yeah, okay, let's leave it there. Thank you so much to our party insiders, Erica Barutis, Greg McEachran, and Anne McGrath. Nice to see you all.